Well, hello, welcome again to a reading of 1 Peter, and I'm up to chapter 3, verse 8. Top de telos. Probably adverbial here, it's sort of finally. Pantes, and again, he just puts a list here without any main verb. So you've got to, again, supply some kind of imperative here. So let all be homophrones. Now this is from homo root, meaning the same, and phren root, phronos. So like-minded. Let all be like-minded. Sum pathes, feeling for one another. In fact, you could just put it straight into English of sympathetic, which is from the same roots. Philadelphoi, lovers of the brethren. Eusplanktoi, compassionate. It's literally having good bowels, but the splanknoi, the inners, the innermost parts, the innards were thought of as your seat of emotion, and so hence eusplanktoi comes to mean compassionate. Tepophrones, again you get that phrones root, and tepanos, which is humble, so humble-minded. Me apodidontes, not giving back, or not giving evil in place of evil, or loidoria. We've had the verb before, loidorio. Now this is the abstract noun, so not giving evil for return for evil, or loidorio is to abuse, so abuse in return for abuse. Tunantion is for to in antion, meaning the one who is opposed to you. So it's blessing the one that which is opposed to you, because as tuto ekleithete, this is so for this you were called. This is an aorist passive from Kallio, in order that you might inherit. So it's subjunctive from kleronomio, blessing. You might inherit a blessing. Now we now get a fairly long quotation here from Psalm 34, 12 to 16, which this editor has done in black to help us. Hogar thelone, for the one wishing the one wishing, this is the infinitive from agapao, the one who wants to love life and to see, another infinitive, hemeras agathas, good days. Pausato, aorist imperative, third person singular from pao. Let him, and it's in the aorist active, so it's let him put a stop to, let him cease his tongue from evil. So let him keep his tongue away from evil, let him cease. We would say let his tongue cease from evil. The Greek says let him cease with respect to his tongue from evil, and his lips, and we get to plus the infinitive, so as not to speak guile, dolon. Enclinato, another imperative from ekklino, so let him turn away from evil and let him do good, kai poiasato agathon. Sato, let him seek from satio, peace, and dioxato from dioko, which has a range of meanings, but it can mean to pursue, which is what it is here. It can also mean to persecute, but here it's pursue, let him pursue it. So let him seek peace and let him pursue it. Hoti, because the ophthalmoi kuriou. Now kuriou without an article, generally, not always, but generally in the Septuagint refers to Yahweh, because the eyes of Yahweh are upon the righteous, and his ears, this is from us, otos, this is the neuter plural, it's the third declension neuter noun, and his ears are, for their hearing. So because the eyes of Yahweh are upon the righteous, and his ears, in the direction of the request of them. Diasis is from de'amai, to ask, so diasis, third declension, feminine abstract noun, their request. So his ears are for their request, or perhaps subject to their request. But the prosopon kuriu, but the face of Yahweh, is epi, against, epoiuntias kaka, those doing evil things. Kaitis ho kakoson humas ean tu agathut selotai genesthai. It's a rhetorical question. And who is the one who is about to, this is a future participle here from kakoo. So who is the one who is going to do bad to you if you might become, this is a second person plural, say lotai, well, if you might become zealous for good. It's literally zealots, because it's from zelotes, it's the first declension, masculine noun. So if you are zealots for good, if you become zealots of good, then who is the one who is about to do you harm? Often in Greek you've got to take it around, start at the second half and then of the sentence before the first half. So probably here is best. So if you were to become zealots for good, who also is the one being about to do ill to you? Kai paskoiti dia dikai osunain. Now this is an optative after a. You get optatives very rarely in the New Testament, mainly in terms of wishes. Luke uses them occasionally and correctly, and this writer here uses them more, really quite a bit, given the shortness of the work, and used correctly. So, but if also you might suffer through on account of righteousness, so because of righteousness, you have to supply the verb to be here, then makari, or you are blessed. Ton de phobon auton me phobeti meti taraktheti. Phobos means normally fear, but I think here it means more like intimidation. It's like that word we had last section. So it's do not fear, literally do not fear the fear that comes from them. In other words, do not fear intimidation from them. Nor taraktheti. This one here is a deponent passive from phobiamai. This one here is just a straight passive imperative from tarasso, and it's taraktheti. So it's a aorist passive imperative. Nor be disturbed, nor be troubled by them, from tarasso. Kurion deton Christon hagi asati entais cardiais humon. Another imperative, so it's sanctify the Lord, the Messiah, the Lord Christ, in your hearts. Hetoimoi aie pros apologian panti to aitunti humas logon perites en humin elpidos. Always, you've got to again supply an imperative from the verb to be, so always be ready for a defense, an apologian, to everyone asking, dative participle from ITO, to everyone asking you, log on an account regarding the hope that is among you or in you. So always be ready for an account, so to give an account to everyone asking you to give a defence, I should say. Always be ready with regard to a defence to everyone asking you for an account regarding the hope that is in you or among you. Alla meta prautetos kai phobu, sun edesen ekontes agathain. I'll just pause it there. But with, now, prautetos is genitive from prautes is the noun. We've had praus, the adjective, before. This is prautes, third declension, feminine noun, meaning humility or meekness. So, but with humility or meekness and fear, having a good conscience, hina enho katalalaiste, in order that, well, the enho is funny here. It can often be sort of when you are in the situation where, in which. So we're just going to say when you are ill spoken of, katalaiste, from katalalia is a passive. When you are ill spoken of, we're going to change of subject here. So when you are ill spoken of, hoi ep ariadzontes. It's a very funny word. It only occurs here and in Luke 6:28 in the New Testament. It means the slanderers, and I'm not sure the etymology is that obvious as to where it comes from, but it means the slanderers. So the slanderers might be ashamed, subjunctive, at the good way of life of you in Christ. So just to do that bit quickly again. So do it with meekness and fear, having a good conscience, in order that when you might be ill spoken of, those slanderers might become ashamed of the good conduct in Christ of you. Kreton ga agathopoi untas a theloi to thelema to theou pascain a kakapoi untas. Now we get a comparative, kreton, and you've got to supply the verb to be again. So it is better to suffer, and we go down to here, it is better, pascain, to suffer, doing good rather than doing ill. So it is better for those to suffer who are doing good rather than those who are doing ill. And then the atheloi tothelema to theou, another optative. These are very rare in the New Testament, but we get several of them in this work. So it has the sense of if the will, if the subject is tothelema, I think. So if the will of God wills it, might will it for the optative. So in other words, if it is the will of God, so if the will of God so wills it, it is better to suffer for those doing good rather than those doing ill. Hoti kai Christos hapax peri hamartion epathen, because Christ also once suffered from Pasco regarding sins, from hamartia. Dikaios hupadikaion, a just man understands suffering on behalf of the unjust. Hina humas pros agege to theo, in order that he might lead you, and variant readings here, to God. He, thanatothes, this is an aorist passive participle from thanatoo, he having been put to death on the one hand in the flesh, and then tsoa poi erthes de pneumati, but having been brought to life, having been brought to life, de pneumati. So we get a nice men and de there. So just do that bit again. So because Christ also once suffered regarding sins, he being a just man suffered on behalf of the unjust, in order that he might bring you to God, he having died to the flesh on the one hand, but having been made alive in the spirit. Enho, we get this enho, he likes this particular combination here. So it's something like in the situation in which also Poruthes, having gone, Keruxen from Keruso, he made proclamation also to the spirits in prison. Now, exactly what this means, you'll have to consult commentaries here. It may be a reference to the theology that Jesus descended into hell, and on the third day was raised again, and that he preached to the souls in Gehenna, or in Hades, wherever it is. So it says here, having gone, he proclaimed to the spirits in prison. Now this is a dative plural participle from apatheo, and it's agreeing back with the pneumasi. To the ones who once, having disobeyed, hote when ex edecheto hetu theou macrothumia en hemeras noi akataskuets omenes kibotu. Now, the subject has to be the he macrothumia. So when the long suffering of God, ap ex and decamai, waited for them, so some often rendered waited patiently, so waited out or waited patiently for them in the days of Noah. That's going to be a genitive here, it doesn't decline. Now this is a genitive absolute here. So it's from kataskuadzo. It's kibotos, but it's one of those second declension feminine nouns ending in os, and hence we've got a feminine participle here. It's a bit confusing because if you look it up, kibotos is a feminine noun. It's the ark. So an ark having an ark, or ark, I suppose is the best I can do here, having been made, in which, and then again you see it's feminine because you get the feminine article, in which a few, that is 8 souls, dear Esothesan, they were saved, dear Hudatos, through water. So reference back to Noah here. So just to do that quickly, so when also, or in this situation also, he having gone, he proclaimed to the souls in prison, the ones who once were disobedient, when the long suffering of God waited patiently in the days of Noah, when an ark had been prepared, in which a few, that is, tutestin octopsukai, 8 souls, were saved through water. Hoc kai humas antitupon nun sodze baptisma, usakos apothesis rupu ala sunedesios egathes eperotema es theon di Anastasios Jesu Christu. Just hold it there. Now the hoc here is just very vague or very general, I think. It's which, it refers to all of the previous bit. So which also is, now antitupon I think goes with baptisma as a type, as a sort of internal accusative, which also as a type of baptism now saves you. So he's connecting here the idea of the ark going on the sea with this as an example of a kind of baptism. So that which also, as a kind of baptism, now saves you, not an apothesis, that is, a putting off, or taking away, I should say, not taking away of, now rupu is a genitive, taking away of dirt from the flesh. So it's a cleansing, which is not a taking away of dirt from the flesh, but eperotema. Eperotema literally means a question or a request, but it seems to be translated generally here as a pledge or undertaking. So I'll just translate this bit. So, but as an undertaking to God of a good conscience. It could mean but as a request to God for a good conscience. In fact, I think I would prefer that to some of the other translations here. So, just to do this again, so which is also for you, as a type of baptism now saves you, not a putting away of dirt from the flesh, but as a request to God for a good conscience, through the resurrection of Jesus Christ. As I mentioned before, he always keeps to that order. Hoc estin, who is endexia, on the right understand hand, you've got to supply keri here, on the right hand, two in brackets, of God, he having gone into heaven, and we get a genitive absolute, hupertagentone, it's an aorist passive participle, hupertagentone auto angelon kai exousion kai dunamion. So he having gone into heaven with the angels and the, exousia, the authorities and powers, having been made subject auto to him. So who is on the right hand of God, having gone into heaven, and the angels, powers and principalities or something, authorities and powers, having been made subject auto to him. And that is the end of chapter 3.